And now, it's time for the Ford Advantage, presented by Maritime Ford, home of the 1% rule.
Maritime Ford, Lincoln Mercury, it's time for Maritime.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year, and welcome back for another edition of the Ford Advantage. I'm Steve Lawson from Maritime Ford, and today I'd like to talk about the man that single-handedly has made me excited again to be a Ford dealer. I'm referring to Ford's CEO and what many consider to be their savior, Alan Mullaly. First off, no, this is no relation to Megan Mullaly of Will and Grace fame, and for many of you, this is probably the first time you've heard the name. Alan came up through the Boeing plane company, and prior to his work at Ford, is probably best known as being the chief architect behind the Boeing 777. For those of you that do recognize the name, it's probably because you saw him sitting in with Congress at the session that led up to the bankruptcies of General Motors and Chrysler. Sitting next to him that day was Rick Wagner, CEO of General Motors, no longer with the company, and Bob Nardelli, CEO of Chrysler, also no longer with the company. How Alan was able to buck that trend is something I think economics professors will be discussing for generations. And what it all comes down to is foresight. Plain and simple. For most of you, the automobile industry's collapse coincided with the overall economy's collapse in 2009. But the truth is, the storm had been brewing for years, and Alan, well, he had the vision to get ahead of it by mortgaging every asset Ford had, right down to the blue oval logo. By lining up the financing for his vision before the bottom fell out, Ford avoided the collapses you saw with GM and Chrysler. Based on last year, I think a lot of people assume that CEOs of big companies are incapable of seeing the writing on the wall. I actually have kind of a different take. My take is that they all see the writing on the wall. It's just that only a precious few of these people are able to actually do something about it before the proverbial stuff hits the fan. But this is why I love this guy. Alan was asked recently if he was riled that both GM and Chrysler were bailed out by the taxpayer. His response was, quote, "No, I'm not. The advantages of not going through bankruptcy far outweigh the advantages of going through it. GM and Chrysler are going to have to slow down their investment in new products, and customers care about products." End quote. You see, a lesser man would be griping about the advantages companies have when they're able to shed their debt through bankruptcy, but not Alan. He focused only on the positives of the situation, and he kind of does it in an aw shucks way that makes people feel, I think, comfortable with Ford while simultaneously knocking the competition. People care about products, and Ford is now in a better position to deliver those products. Bingo, huh? Alan then went on to say, quote, "GM and Chrysler were failed enterprises. Just think about everyone that got wiped out in Chapter 11, all the shareholders and the bondholders. In there are the same banks that we borrow money from today, and because we honored our commitments, we could not have a better relationship with them," end quote. That's not too shabby, huh? Talk about your glass being half full. Alan was just honored with the Sunday Times Business Person of the Year award, and I'd like to read you a quick snippet from that Sunday Times article. Quote, "With his bright smile, open face, and lick of light brown hair, Alan Mullaly looks like an overgrown Boy Scout. If Richie Cunningham of Happy Days had never met the Fonz and gone straight into business, he might have turned out like Mullaly." "Gee, Dominic, that's a kind of neat way to ask that question," he chirps in at one point during the interview. "Don't be fooled. Mullaly may look and sound preppy, but he's a killer preppy," end quote. And folks, that's what Ford needed, a voice, a vision, and the veracity to get it done. That's why he's still standing. That's why Ford is still standing, and that's why I'm here doing a radio show for you all here today, because we have a leader that you can hang your hat on. And while I admit I'm biased, I can't say the same for any other manufacturer out there today, Honda and Toyota included. Alan Mullaly has a laser-like focus toward the future of both Ford and the automobile industry. I'm honored to be one of his soldiers. And for an industry that's been just pummeled over the past year plus, I can't believe how optimistic I am going forward. The beauty part of all of this is that you can see the fruits of Alan's labor today at Maritime Ford. Test drive the all-new Taurus, the Motor Trend Car of the Year Ford Fusion, the best-selling truck in the country for 33 consecutive years, the Ford F-150. Need more incentive? Email me through our website, www.maritimeford.com, and I will be happy to provide it. You have a great week. Thanks for your time. Take care, everyone.
You've been listening to the Ford Advantage, presented by Maritime Ford, home of the 1% rule. Don't forget to tune in again next Monday morning at 11:15 for another edition of the Ford Advantage with Steve.
It's time for Maritime. Maritime Ford, Lincoln Mercury. It's time for Maritime. It's time to come and see the Maritime difference. To put the fun back in the buying experience. friend